Legend of Total War here, and today I'm going to be doing another tier list using Tier Maker. This time I'm going to be ranking each individual Total War campaign within the franchise, as long as I have actually played it. So there are a couple of Total War campaigns, not very many, that I have never played, and so I'll mention them, but they will not go up on the ranking here. So before we get into the tier list itself, I need to let you guys know that this video here is sponsored by Manscaped. You guys know I've been with Manscaped for ages. Love the product, love working with them. Today I'm talking about the Handyman, a razor that I talk about quite frequently. That's because I use this one more than the others. If you don't like using a razor blade, this electric razor is a must-have. You'll get a close shave in a fraction of the time. I'm rough as hell with it and it never irritates or cuts my skin. Spend less time in the bathroom and more time doing anything else you want to do. Check out the link in the description or pinned comment and get 20% off plus free international shipping. Big thanks to Manscaped for sponsoring this video. Okay, with that being said, let's get into the tier list itself. So, want to make it as clear as possible to let you guys know exactly what we're talking about, what the criteria is for this tier list, so that, we don't get confusion in the comments with people going, but what about this? And I wasn't even talking about that in the first place, sort of thing. I'm not talking about battles at all. This is not a rating of any particular Total War game. We've already done a Total War tier list where I ranked each game as a whole, and I've already done a Total War tier list where I ranked each game's battles as a whole. This one here is to rank the individual campaigns and everything that you can do on the campaign map, and then nothing else. So, a particular game might have fantastic battles, but a shit campaign. Their battles will not be factored into this whatsoever. There may be Total War games that I have ranked quite highly that I'll give a particular campaign of theirs a really low rank, and vice versa. So basically separate yourself from all the other tier lists. We're only talking about the individual campaigns, what those campaigns offer in terms of gameplay, and then assume that what the game would be like is if you just like auto-resolved every single battle. So sort of separate the battles from it. Okay, so let's get into it now. Starting with Shogun 1. Now, I can only come at this from a biased point of view, from my own personal experience. The timeline at which you play these games is important. I didn't play every single Total War game the moment they came out, and Shogun 1 was not when I was introduced into the franchise. It was actually Medieval 1, and after playing Medieval 1, I actually skipped Viking Invasion and went on to Rome Total War, and then pretty much went on like that up until, I don't know, maybe about Rome 2, at which point I went back. So I played Shogun 1 well after, Rome 2 even came out. So it was probably 2015 when it was the first time I even played Shogun 1. And that's important because it does shape what my experience was playing it, because by that point the game is 15 years old. I've got it on Steam, or I've got it on a disc. I can't remember what we were doing in 2015. And it didn't run very well. I still gave it as much of a crack as I possibly could, but it didn't run very well at all. It constantly crashed. I think I've got one Let's Play on this channel of Shogun 1, and it was a pain in the ass to record. But, from the gameplay perspective, it was probably just because it's using hardware. It just doesn't really understand what this game is because it's just so damn old. But, it is very similar to Medieval 1. And my first time playing Medieval 1, I was pretty much obsessed with this game. So I try to take that into consideration for Shogun 1 as well. But playing this campaign here in 2025, I think it's fine, as long as you don't have any technical issues. So if your computer can run it just fine without constantly crashing, I think the campaign side of things for the base game for Shogun 1 is actually great. The first Total War games, so this is on the Total War 1 engine, that's these 4 entries here, very much like a board game, where instead of having movement range of your armies, they're just able to move to the neighboring region in their next given turn. And that you could move them further via sea as long as you have a complete chain of ships available to direct them. And you could ship as many armies around as you wanted to, even if there was only one ship in each region. Also, Shogun 1, I think, is the only Total War game where you don't get your tax income every single turn, because there's 4 turns per year, 1 per season, and you only get your tax income at the end of the year, basically. So you could actually end up spending all your money, being broke for half the year, and having to wait for your tax income to come through. So that was a really interesting take on the first Total War game that was kind of ditched straight away for every other Total War game. They never sort of went back to that. I don't think it was something that was good about it. It was just interesting. I think it's one of those things that kind of make the game unnecessarily more complicated because you just have to sort of budget your finances throughout the 4 seasons and then predict how much you're going to get the next year sort of thing. But overall, I really like the campaign side of things. It has okay diplomacy, okay sort of recruitment and construction side of things. It's very similar to Medieval 1. Medieval 1 just expands it a hell of a lot, obviously. So if you're going to play this in 2025, I'd say it's a B ranking. It's an alright Total War campaign. Now, moving on to the expansion, I actually enjoyed the expansion more than the base game because the expansion offered something of like a what-if scenario. Because while the Mongols always maybe made a small attempt at a invasion of Japan, they never really got around to a full-scale invasion due to the typhoon winds or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. But what this campaign here offers, and this is the essentially the expansion for Shogun 1, is a full-scale invasion of Japan where you, as the player, you play as a unified Japan. So you actually own all the regions, and you have to defend it against the oncoming hordes of Mongols. So as they capture your territory, gain a foothold, you have to kick them out, and then they keep coming until eventually they stop coming, at which point you can then kick them off for good and win the campaign that way. I thought it was a really interesting take. It's kind of similar in theme, I guess, to Total War Attila, where it's like survive as long as you can. The end of the world is coming because the Huns or the Mongols are invading. But I think that the Mongol invasion campaign here did a really good job of it, for sure, because you don't have other factions to deal with either. It's really just you going up against the Mongols. It's a unique scenario that kind of really isn't replicated across any other Total War game. So I'm going to give this one here an A rank, just because it is super bloody old, but you won't get this experience in any other official Total War game, in my opinion. So that's why I'm going to put it at A. Okay, then we move on to the base game for Medieval 1. So this is the first Total War game I ever played, first Total War campaign. I think it's great, even in 2025, as long as you don't have technical issues. I mean, one of the main reasons I don't play it anymore is, for one thing, I've played the crap out of it, so you can only play something so many times before you just get bored of it anyway. Says the guy who played 14,000 hours of Warhammer 2, but anyway. But it just sort of ran its course with me. But when I first did get it, I played through so many different campaigns. You've got a decent amount of cultural diversity because you've got different cultures to players. Obviously, you've got the Muslim ones, the Byzantine, the Russian one, and then the various different Christian ones do play out kind of similar, but there's variations between them. Whereas with Shogun 1, all of the Japanese clans, they do play just about identical. So there's a lot more diversity of gameplay on the campaign side of things with Medieval 1, especially considering you also got diversity of locations. So for example, if your people are used to fighting in the snow and then you're invading the desert, they're actually going to perform really badly in the sand and in the heat. So much so that you can actually have, hang on a second. I'm not supposed to be mentioning the battles, so scratch that. So, but yeah, the Medieval 1 campaign side of things has just got a lot more diversity on top of the core that was Shogun 1, because they basically use the same engine there. So I'm going to be putting the Medieval 1 in A tier. Again, it's really good as long as you don't encounter a lot of technical issues. Obviously, graphically, it's outdated, but I don't think we should take that too much into consideration on the campaign side of things. Everything's, the UI is fine. It's not nothing groundbreaking or anything. It was, one of the first Total War games. But as far as how the actual board game plays out, they did a really good job of it. Then we've got the Viking Invasion. So Viking Invasion is the expansion for Medieval 1. Once again, I didn't play this until long after it actually came out, long after I played all these other ones here. So I didn't actually think this one here was particularly good. So basically I only played one campaign of this, I think, because I just wasn't that into it to play others. But from my memory, I played as one of the Scandinavian, I think it's the only one Scandinavian factions. These early Total War games don't give you a whole lot of faction variety, but it's fine. But yeah, played as the Vikings, essentially, did the Viking Invasion. I think the thing that felt off about this particular campaign is that it just felt like a really, really small version of Medieval 1. You weren't really doing any raiding or pillaging. It was conquest. So I was sending my armies over to Britannia, and I was conquering it, which didn't really feel like it how it should have with how that event historically went out, and it just played out pretty much identically in terms of the gameplay as Medieval 1. So it didn't really offer any sort of different gameplay experience. It just offered the illusion of a different time period, but you still play out the same way. Whereas with the Mongol invasion, obviously it's an earlier stage in the timeline of humans. So we got the 16th century here, and this one was like 14th century. But the way that this campaign plays out is like night and day compared to this one. Whereas this one just feels like, again, smaller scale. So I'm actually going to put the Viking invasion as C tier. I don't think it's terrible. I just don't think it's great at all. I didn't really enjoy it, which is why I only ever played like one campaign of it. So nothing wrong with that whatsoever, just wasn't really for me. I can only ever come at this from a subjective point of view. Played the game, the campaign, just wasn't that into it. Okay, then we move on to Rome 1. Now, you'll also notice that I didn't include the remaster in this because I don't feel like the remaster really makes any difference. So basically just assume if you're going to sit there and go, but what about the remaster? It's just the identical, it's just been the exact same spot that I put this, because the campaign of the original and the campaign of the remaster, the remaster is just better graphics, really. Obviously, the AI has been tweaked a little bit, but not in any substantial way that actually makes it important. The remaster does add merchants, which adds nothing to the game whatsoever. So it's just not worth making a separate entry. I'll just, again, honorable mention, I guess. So Rome 1 does have a prologue campaign, and I thought it was really good. But that's all I have to say about it. Basically, I played it once or twice. It just helps you to learn how to play the game. But it is good. Basically, just play as the Julii, conquering 1 or 2 settlements or something like that, at sort of before the main timeline of 272 BC. So this campaign here is S tier, because even in 2025, the way that the Total War 2 engine works on the campaign side of things, in my opinion, is pretty much better than the Warscape engine in the vast majority of the Warscape engine titles. So there are mechanics in Rome Total War and in Medieval 2, I guess, because Medieval 2 is basically just a mod of Rome 1, that are really good, that never made it back into another Total War game, that in my opinion are sorely missed. So for example, cities actually feel like places where people lived in Rome Total War and Medieval 2, obviously, because it actually had a population that you could murder, essentially, and it would impact on how that settlement would be of value to you. Obviously, an overwhelmingly overpopulated city would cause huge amounts of public order problems, and so sometimes you would just want to exterminate them or enslave them or whatever in order to get that population down. But that would reduce the tax income. It also reduced the trade income. So all of these different factors in the campaign map that were something that you didn't need to pay that much attention to, but it was there behind the scenes, and if you wanted to go and have a look, you could. You can even there was even an option where you could press a button and go and have a look at the actual city and what you've built there, because all of the buildings that you construct in your cities will be present on the campaign side of on the battle side of things as well. And Rome 1 was really quite unique with that. Even in Medieval 2, very few of the buildings that you actually construct will visibly show up on the battle side of things, and most of the battle maps look like the siege map will look pretty much identical in terms of its layout, at least. So Rome 1 was quite unique with that. Really fantastic campaign side of things. Obviously the AI is bad, but if we keep saying the AI is bad, we're going to be saying it a lot. So is the campaign fun? Absolutely. Even in 2025, I think that Rome Total War has got a fantastic campaign side of things. Okay, now moving on to the Barbarian Invasion. So this moves it to basically Total War Attila 1, same sort of time period, where Western Roman Empire starts to crumble and the hordes of the barbarians start pouring in. It introduces a couple of new mechanics on the campaign side of things, such as religion. Whereas in the base game, there wasn't religion. There was cultural differences based on the structures that were there. In fact, that system didn't really work all that well, because if certain buildings reached the maximum tier and you couldn't demolish it, well then that's it. The culture couldn't ever be changed. That same system does apply in Barbarian Invasion as well, but they have on top of that an additional one, which is religion. And religion was one of those mechanics that was very impactful in the early stages of the campaign because it provided a huge public order problem if they were the wrong religion. And it was interesting as some factions were actually able to change their religion based on... well, actually, you didn't change your religion. It's just that various different factors contributed to the public order problem. So, for example, if a region was considered pagan and you supported its paganism, then even if your faction leader was a Christian, that's fine. It's just that you would take a small penalty for him being Christian. But if the majority were pagan, and then you demolished all the pagan buildings and then said, right, you're Christian now, and built a like a church there to designate it to being Christian, but it would still take time because you have like 90% pagan population, and that have huge public order problems until you got rid of it. So yeah, you could actually maintain a population that was not your religion as long as you made it accountances for it. But it was a bit of an annoying system, and they refined that a hell of a lot more in the later Total War games. So with Barbarian Invasion, it also included hordes, factions that didn't have any settlements, at least to begin with, and that could roam around, be a huge problem, and then occupy somewhere later, and then pack up and move later down the track if they really wanted. But Barbarian Invasion, I thought, was a good campaign. It was smaller in scope than the base game because it had fewer settlements, despite having the exact same actual size of the map. So I'm going to put this one here at A tier. I think it's a good campaign map, but I do think that the base game is a bit better. Then we've got Total War Alexander. So this is taking on Alexander's conquest of the Achaemenid Persians. I don't think they did a very good job of this campaign because it's extraordinarily basic. It's a very small campaign map, and you're sort of poised to conquer it within about 10 years, which is insanely difficult to do because it's still 2 turns per year. So a lot of things, like the core issues with its time scale, were just not really addressed in it, and so it really feels like a lackluster mod of the base game here. It could have been a really good expansion, but I think there were just a lot of things that they needed to do to go in there and tweak that they didn't do. A lot of the Persian armies are basically just sit there. They're already there at the very start of the campaign, and they just sit there waiting for you to show up, and you just have various different battles. And so the campaign feels really, really fucking empty. It's just a bunch of cities that you just go from settlement to settlement, basically smashing, and they very rarely do anything about it until you're actually within range. A very, very sort of passive AI there. So it's just a weird campaign. And I think they really should have changed the timescale on that. Not instead of 2 turns per year, it should have at least been 4 turns per year in order to adequately give Alexander enough time to actually conquer the Persian Empire before he died at the age of 33. Which, in a Total War sense of things is that's not a whole lot of turns. And that's something that they managed to implement in later Total War games. Such as Napoleon Total War, where it's, 12 or 24 turns per year? Can't remember exactly. But it allows you to have a single character play out 200 turns, whereas this one here, 200 turns of Rome Total War Alexander, he's friggin' 100 years old, he's dead, by that point. Anyway, so I'm going to put Rome Total War Alexander actually in D tier. It is not a good campaign, in my opinion. I think the people who enjoy this really come down to... just wanting to play Alexander's campaign out, which I perfectly understand. I really want to have a Total War game based on Alexander. It would have actually been really good to get a Total War Saga Alexander, but we never got that. It is what it is. Anyway, sagas have their own issues. Okay, so now we move on to Medieval 2. Base game Medieval 2, oh yeah, S tier for sure. So, big improvements over Rome Total War with a few mechanics lost. So, you no longer have sort of like the Senate missions you have instead of Pope, which only the Catholic factions have, which of course in Rome Total War only the Roman factions have the Senate missions. You've also got access to Crusades, and it's just a massive refinement over Rome 1, especially in terms of managing public order, because with the public order penalties due to different culture, it really just came down to the different religion, and there wasn't any point at which, oh, I got to this settlement too late, I can't reduce the religion beyond a certain point. You could even send your priests out early before you conquered a province, to convert the population so that it would be easier for you to maintain it once you did arrive. That's if you want to do that. So what Medieval 2 did is offered a hell of a lot, well, a bit more campaign depth over Rome Total War's campaign, which that was already a very deep and impactful campaign experience, and Medieval 2 just built up on it, and I think they just smashed it out of the water, which is one of the reasons why Medieval 2, despite being nearly 20 years old, is one of the most played Total War games to date. And you could also argue that that's because of mods. Yep, but most of the campaign mechanics are basically drawing in from the base game. And I think that's one of the reasons why there are so many mods, is because the base game's campaign is so bloody good. But yeah, really great campaign. Took the exact same sort of campaign map of Medieval 1, obviously graphically enhanced, and in the Total War 2 engine. But in terms of what land area it covers, maybe it's a little bit bigger than what was available in Medieval 1. And also in Medieval 1, you had the Mongol invasion only, whereas in Medieval 2, you've got the Mongol invasion, you've got the Timurid invasion, which is kind of like Mongol invasion 2.0, but then you've also got the European invasion, where you become the endgame crisis to the Aztecs. So you could, at the very late stages of the campaign, send your early seafaring or ocean-faring ships to go and land in a very, very poorly to scale Americas and encounter the Aztecs and just absolutely obliterate them, because it's so one-sided in terms of their the unit quality there. But that's the thing; it's just a super fun aspect of Medieval 2, and something that really no other Total War game offered was the ability to go and explore a new land after a certain day, because you had to wait a really long time before you were even allowed to go and do that. It's not like if you just got an ocean-faring boat on turn 5 and then just go sail over the Americas, you can go get there by 1150 AD. Nope. The earliest you can get there was basically like 1400 and something. So really, really good campaign there. Okay, then we've got the different Kingdoms expansions campaigns. Now, these are all going to get different rankings because I didn't like them all the same. I do think that the Kingdoms expansion for Medieval 2 is absolutely fantastic, but not every aspect of it. Okay, so the Americas campaign, so expanding upon the invasion of the Europeans into the New World, where you can play as New Spain essentially under Cortez. Well, you do also get Cuba as well. Making it basically unstoppable for you. You can't lose, really, because the natives can't get boats, so it's not possible for them to get Cuba off you. But one of the interesting things about this campaign is that you could play as the natives and at least push... you could potentially defeat the Spanish. It's difficult because they are so much stronger than your units, but you have numbers on your side. But then again, they just keep coming back for the most part. And then, of course, there is the French arrival and the English arrival. I can't remember which one happens first. But that's also very interesting as well. I do think that the engine itself doesn't really lead very well to sort of 15th and 16th century warfare. When we get into sort of guns and stuff, it's a bit iffy. It sort of handles melee infantry, archers, and just like melee cavalry a hell of a lot better. So I think the Americas campaign, it could have been a lot better than it actually was. It also sort of didn't really come with its own sort of unique campaign mechanic. It was just, this is the latest stage of Medieval 2 that's on offer. So I'm going to put this one here as B tier, because I think it's good, just not that good. Then we've got the Teutonic campaign. Really like this campaign. I think it is an A tier campaign. So what I like about this one is that you're able to, there are... let's see it. I'm just trying to remember exactly what was the unique feature of the Teutonic campaign. There was, I think, the first instance of an actual confederation where if you play as like Denmark, you can actually get the Union of Kalmar, where you could take the entire territory of Norway and whatever they hold and all of their armies by fulfilling certain conditions. And I just can't remember if this was the campaign map where you could build your own stone forts, or whether it... Or no, maybe you could. I think it was Britannia that had the one where there were just auto placement of forts, stone forts around the map, and that you couldn't build new ones. But it was the Crusades campaign where you could actually build the stone ones. Yeah, I think that's it. But yeah, with the Teutonic campaign, obviously the two main factions that you play as, you've got the Teutons, where you're punishing the Lithuanians for not being Christian, and they can eventually convert to Christianity. And if you're playing as the Lithuanians, you can make that decision as well. So resisting against the Teutonic Order. And then the various different clusterfuck things that happens in that whole area, such as, it eventually ended up in like a big brawl with Poland, who was sort of like the big winner of the Teutonic of the war, because Poland and Lithuania eventually formed a confederation, but a lot of that stuff isn't really represented in the game. It also has the Mongol invasion already present, so they're kind of the Golden Horde at that point, but they're just like a sort of a static. They don't really do anything. They're just there in the southeastern part of the map. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this campaign. I think one of the things that they did best about the Teutonic campaign is the actual theme, the music themes of it, because it just really feels kind of like dark and gothic. So that they hit the nail on the head with that kind of stuff. But overall, I really enjoyed the Teutonic campaign. Okay, then we've got the Crusades campaign. I'm going to put this one at S tier. This is one of my favorites of the Kingdoms expansion. What I like about this particular campaign is that there is not that much building up that you need to do at the start of a campaign. Most of the factions already start off with big standing armies and a lot of available funds with well-developed cities, so you can just immediately draft a whole bunch of troops and go straight into massive fights. And if you don't do that, it's going to be brought to you straight away. So big battles that happen very often. And of course, it has the Mongol invasion, but also the Venetian invasion for the Byzantine Empire. So you can either you can choose to repel that as the Byzantines, or if you're playing as someone else, allow the Venetians to take over take over Constantinople. Of course, they don't form the Latin Empire; they're still just Venice. But it's just they are there. So really enjoyed this particular campaign because it's not slow-paced. There's just always something going on, and there's just already very well-developed cities. So it's basically one that just hits the ground running straight away. So I really like that. Okay, then we have the Britannia campaign, which I'm also going to put at S tier. These are my two favorite of the Kingdoms expansions. I think the Britannia campaign is fantastic because you've got either players the big dog is England, who already owns more than half the map at the very start of the campaign, but it's difficult for them to hold on to all of it. It's kind of like a Western Roman Empire experience because you've got the Welsh, the Scottish, and the Irish that you're fighting all at the same time. Not so much the Norwegians at the start. It's more of a Scottish problem, at least to begin with. And then you've also got their kind of civil war within the Barons Alliance. So an emergent faction that can come in and cause you additional problems. And that can keep coming back if you don't keep your settlements under control. And there's various like characters in it as well. Not like single entity characters like with Warhammer or with Three Kingdoms or anything. And this is the thing with the Crusades campaign as well, where you've got various historical characters that either start off on the campaign map or will emerge later. So, for example, just going back to the Crusades campaign, for the Kingdom of Jerusalem, you'll get Richard the Lionheart. I can't remember who the guy is for the Principality of Antioch. I can't remember who it was for the Turks as well, but I kind of feel like it was actually Osman, as in the beginning of the Ottoman Empire. And then for the Byzantine Empire, it was like Manuel the First. I can't remember. And some of them actually have unique abilities that had it's not like superpowers or anything, but just had unique things that only they could do on the battles. Again, this is not something I should be talking about because we're not rating the battles. But yeah, they did have like these hero characters, which, they could go into a battle, die, and then that's just the end of it. But yeah, in the Britannia campaign, you've also got these sort of heroic characters as well. William Wallace does emerge. You've got, Edward Longshanks and various others. But yeah, really enjoyed this campaign here because of how different each of the campaigns play out. Even though it's on a smaller scale, I got nothing wrong with a small scale Total War game. So this is where the Viking invasion went wrong. If you're going to do that, you need to make it so that it offers an experience that the other, like the Grand Campaign, doesn't offer. And I think like the Britannia campaign offers that. Whereas if you're playing with Scotland, you've got emergent reinforcements that'll happen at some point, and you're going up against the big dog, England. If you're playing as England, you're basically Western Roman Empire situation, like I've just mentioned, where you're just trying to hold on to everything to begin with, and then stomping everyone, I guess. And you can also send Edward Longshanks on crusade if you want, and he comes back with some crusader units and some better traits. So really interesting stuff there with the Kingdoms expansion with Medieval 2. Okay, then moving on to Empire Total War. So this here I'm talking about the grand campaign from the various factions you can play as, but there's a bit of a weird thing with Empire Total War because it's got two grand campaigns. There's the Americas campaign as well. So the Americas campaign is kind of like the prologue campaign, which eventually turns into a grand campaign where you can play as the Americans, as USA. The thing is, at the start of Empire Total War's grand campaign, it's 1700, where England has the 13 colonies, but that's not USA. And they can certainly emerge during that time, but you can't play as them if you choose that particular campaign. You have to go through the various prologue campaigns in order to play as the Americas, as USA, at a later stage in the campaign, which allows you to also extend out the game beyond the 1800s. Now, in terms of the campaign of Empire Total War is a game that I have previously said was pretty shit, but I actually really like the campaign side of things with Empire Total War. It offers a pretty robust trade system in terms of gathering the resources. Certain regions may not have much tax income, but might have valuable resources that you can use to trade to your trade partners. Now, it was totally worthless if you didn't actually have a trade partner, because nothing could be sold internally within your empire. So it was absolutely essential that you at least have one trade partner if you were going to play into this mechanic, that is. And having nodes across various different places where there were no settlements to capture. Instead, you put trade ships there in order to send resources back to your capital and then sell off to your trade partners, which other factions could raid those regions to make money. So there was quite a lot going on within the campaign map side of things with Empire Total War. And I actually think, for the most part, the campaign is pretty good. Just the diplomacy is awful. And the way that settlements develop, I just think that Medieval 2 and Rome 1 system was better. So in terms of the campaign side of things for Empire Total War, I'm actually going to put it at A tier for both of them, because I just wanted to make a distinction here because you can play as USA, and it starts off after 1776. And then you've also got the Warpath campaign. So this is another one that's later on. This is a DLC campaign, actually. And this one here, I thought was absolute dog shit. I hate this campaign. I only ever played it once, and I just hate it. I'll never play it again. Basically, there's just nothing interesting about this. You play as the natives. There's nothing wrong with playing as the natives, but they don't, in my opinion, they don't really have anything that makes them interesting when compared to the other European factions. Like, they don't have unique mechanics. They've just got shit units, and lots of them. That's basically their thing. And that their regions are, at the start of the campaign at least, religiously aligned with them, and you have to go up against the Europeans. So I like the idea of going up, as the underdogs, as like technologically not advanced culture, going up against the invading cultural supremacy, I guess, of the Europeans, and taking them on. Got no problem with that. But yeah, they really did sort of miss the nail on the head, because You can't get ships, which made getting the islands, you had to trade for them. Did you get ships? I just can't remember. And it just, playing as them, it just felt really flat. At least that's from my perspective. So I really didn't enjoy playing as the Warpath campaign. Like I said, I only played it once, and I will just never play it again because I just don't like it. Okay, then moving on to Napoleon Total War. So Napoleon Total War's campaign is pretty damn similar to Empire Total War. It's basically the same engine. It's basically the same engine from here on out, basically. But anyway, with Napoleon Total War, it moves it from instead of being at 1700 to 1800, this is Napoleon's life, making it more focused on the character. And this is where it sort of introduces the idea of an immortal character when you're playing as Napoleon. So you've got his prologue campaigns, right? So you've got there's a small one in France that you can play. It's a couple of turns. That's basically the prologue campaign. Then you've got the Italian campaign, then the Egyptian campaign, and then the Grand Campaign side of things. And the Grand Campaign can also be played as one of the coalition members, like Great Britain, Prussia, Russia, and Austria. I think there might be another one. I can't remember. Sweden, again, just can't remember. But yeah, this one here offers an improvement on the campaign side of things. You can still send out your ships to various trade nodes, even though you can't send them around the world. It doesn't include the USA at all. I can't interact with them. It's got a nominal amount of of the Ottoman Empire, just a tiny little sliver of them, as opposed to their full empire. This is in the Grand Campaign side of things. However, I do think that the Napoleon campaign side of things is just like a more refined but smaller side of things compared to Empire Total War. So I'm going to put this one here at A tier. Also, another thing to mention about these campaigns here is that these were the first ones that actually implemented the first instance of an actual tech tree, whereas previously there wasn't a tech tree. You just unlocked tech as you advanced your settlements, which is separate in Empire Total War and Napoleon, and then from then on, basically. Okay, and then with this instance here, I'm including all of the campaigns that can be played on the Grand Campaign side of things. And the separation here is due to the Peninsular campaign. So this is where you can play in Iberia, where it's basically France versus Britain over the control over the Iberian Peninsula. This one here is okay. It's very small scale and doesn't really offer, in my opinion, any like unique mechanics to separate it from base game Napoleon. It's just a smaller scale thing, and that's all it really is. I didn't play a whole lot of it. It just didn't really find it that interesting. So I'm gonna put this one here at C tier. I don't think it's bad. It's just, like I said, if you love Napoleon Total War and you just wanted more Napoleon Total War, but on a smaller scale, then that's what the Peninsular campaign is there. It's also probably a bit more challenging to play on that one as well. But overall, I just don't think it offers any real different gameplay. Like, the thing is with an expansion, and I think this is the key thing here, if it wants to get equal or better score than its base game, it's got to offer something that the base game didn't. And that's what the Mongol invasion succeeded with the Crusades campaign succeeded with, and Britannia campaign succeeded with, in my opinion. Okay, then moving on to Shogun 2. So Shogun 2's campaign side of thing, I think, is actually freaking boring. I've rated Shogun 2 very highly before because the battle side of things are fantastic, right? But this is where I'm probably going to get a lot of pushback, right? But the campaign of Shogun 2 is not very good. I'm actually going to put it at B tier because in its essence, it's identical to Shogun 1. There's really not a whole lot more in Shogun 2 on the campaign side of things that you can do compared to Shogun 1. Obviously, it has a tech tree, and it's slightly different in how you construct your buildings and your units and stuff. But the settlement management is bare bones. Trade is maybe a little bit improved upon, because at least you can sell your resources internally at a massive discount, whereas you couldn't do that in Empire Total War. But that being said, there isn't a whole lot of value in even sending your ships to go and acquire these resources at the trade nodes, because those trade resources usually aren't worth the upkeep cost, at least, especially in the early stages of the campaign, of the ships that you need to import it. And given the fact that you're also going to have to deal with the pirates as well, the Waco pirates that will show up all the goddamn time, plus all of the bloody AI factions that will swarm you. So it's all right. I think Shogun 2's strength is just not on the campaign side of things, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's an adequate campaign experience, but Shogun 2's, it has other strengths. It's just not there. Okay, then there's the Rise of the Samurai, which I think a lot of people didn't even know existed. But yeah, it's just a DLC for base game Shogun 2, which takes it early, basically the rise of the samurai, way centuries earlier, and it's okay. Basically, offers the exact same gameplay experience. Agents are very strong in these campaigns. I'm going to put it at C tier because I've only ever played the campaign once, and I thought it was okay, but I had no reason to really go back and play it again. It just didn't offer anything on the campaign side of things that was an improvement over the base game Shogun 2. And that's where they got things right with Fall of the Samurai, because on the campaign side of things with Fall of the Samurai, it is better than Shogun 2. I'm going to put this at S tier. Shogun 2's campaign, Shogun 2 Fall of the Samurai's campaign is really bloody good. There's a lot more going on the campaign side of things. There's a lot more to the settlement management. It's a lot better. The technology tree is a lot more, it's a lot more intricate because it's based on your, not only just progressing through it, but also your settlement, your clan development, and whether or not you even want to be clan developed or not. And so these were decisions that you had to make in your campaign, whether or not you wanted to be aligned with the emperor or not, or even go it alone as a republic. These are experiences that set it aside from base game Shogun 2. I know Shogun 2's got the realm divide, but it's got different types of realm divides where you've got I guess, an allied realm divide, and then the true realm divide where everyone dogpiles on you, which is the Republic. You've also got the presence of foreign assistance, I suppose, foreign troops and agents with Fall of the Samurai, which were somewhat represented in base game Shogun 2, but only barely. But yeah, I do think that the campaign side of things with Shogun 2 is so much better, especially because you can also take your ships and use it to bombard armies and settlements. I think the diplomacy is also a lot better in Fall of Samurai, so just took a good game and, in my opinion, made a better version of it. So that's why it gets the S tier there. Fall of Samurai is really bloody good. Okay, then Rome 2. Okay, so Rome 2. Right. This is a game that I have heavily criticized in the past. But here's the thing. The things that I think make Rome 2 shit is primarily on the battle side of things. Primarily. That being said, there are some really shit features on the campaign side of things as well. So it's just not that bad on the campaign side of things. So talking about the various things with Rome 2's campaign, right? This is the base grand campaign. Also, there is a prologue campaign for this, which I actually think is quite interesting because it actually is a much longer than sort of the average prologue campaign. And actually has quite a good narrative to go through it, a bit of a twist at the end. So I only ever played through it once, as per pretty much every prologue campaign. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that one does exist there for Rome 2, and it's quite good. So yeah, with Rome 2, they really changed a hell of a lot of things with this. It's the first Total War game that implements the provincial system, which I like the provincial system, by the way. I just didn't like how little customization you could actually do with the actual settlements. The 6-4-4 system, where you could have 6 build slots in the major settlements and then 4 build slots. That's 4 build slots maximum. Some of the build slots were only 3 if they didn't have a port for Rome 2. It was just really bare bones, and they never really improved upon that. The fact that they added more different buildings that you could construct, there's still usually just like an optimal way to build things, and every province just ended up basically being the same. The tech tree is kind of basic, but I think the diplomacy is also kind of bad as well. I mean, that's the way it is with pretty much every Total War game up until this point. Anyway, not until we get to Three Kingdoms do we really mention that stuff. But what really I think sours the experience of the campaign for me with Rome 2 is the politics system. I hated it right from day one, and I still hate it today. And in my opinion, I would probably give the Rome 2 base campaign a pretty high ranking if it wasn't for the politics system. I wish I could just turn it off, because I think it offers nothing except for nuisance and for the player, because the other AI factions don't interact with their politics system at all, and I just don't like it. It's filled with just press a button, make it go away. Press a button, make it go away. Throw money at this, make it go away, because it's so friggin' annoying. And that was a big problem for me with the Rome 2 campaign. But there are lots of other things that make it enjoyable, such as leveling up your actual legacies with your army. So not only do the characters level up, but so the character that was the general that was leading your army lives, dies, whatever. But the army retains its experience throughout the ages and can be disbanded and then brought back with a new legion later down the track and retain its specialities. So that was a really good feature in Rome 2 that was kept into Total War Attila and then, just hasn't basically returned since. Maybe because it isn't historically relevant for the other Total War games. But yeah, that is something that was good in that one. In terms of the settlement management overall, though, in terms of the empire building, it's not too bad with Rome 2. It's just that there's a lot of settlements, and they do feel very cookie cutter and a bit boring after a while on the campaign map side of things. But, it's a gorgeous looking map. There's no doubt about that. I'm going to put the Rome 2 campaign at a B tier, which puts it at the same tier as Shogun 2. It's got a lot of issues. It's got some things that it did right. It's just it's a conflicted thing there with Rome 2 there. Okay. Also, I think one of the things I really didn't like too much about it was 1 turn per year. With the original Rome Total War, which was 2 turns per year, you basically had a lot more time with your generals, and I felt like I would connect with them a lot more. And with Rome 2, because it was just a leveling up system, you level this guy up to level 10. Oh god, he's 60 years old. Oh, he's dead. That's it. Okay, well, the next guy, let's level him up basically identically as the same one. And while they will gain their own unique traits based on what they do, such as triumphs and that kind of stuff. I just didn't really give a shit that much because it didn't have as much impact as it did with Rome 1. Whereas the things that they did on the campaign like directly affected their personality, and with this one here, their level was the main thing that affected their stats, which was just less interesting. Okay, but then we move on to the Imperator Augustus campaign. That was the best image I could find, unfortunately. And these are all different sizes, so this one here doesn't show up very well. But anyway, this is the Imperator Augustus campaign. Basically, it takes the base game campaign and does a bit better of a job of it. The time scale is much more enjoyable because it's multiple turns per year. So you get that feeling of the generals you keep for your entire campaign, basically. And it's got same number of settlements, pretty sure. Still got that stupid politics system to deal with. Overall, I do think that the Imperator Augustus campaign is a better campaign than Rome 2. And, it was I'm pretty sure it was a free edition as well. But although I'm not ranking the price of this stuff at all. So I'm going to put this one here at A tier because I do think it was a refinement over base game Rome 2. Okay, then we move on to Hannibal at the Gates. So a lot of DLC campaigns came with Rome 2, and they are going to vary greatly in quality. And Hannibal at the Gates is a good one. So I think they did a great job of this. Primarily, there's lots of different factions you can play as, but primarily you're either playing as Rome or you're playing as Carthage. And then, like I said, there's other ones you can play as. Like I think there's a Numidian, there's some Iberian tribes that you can play as, which is great. But the core experience is either playing as Rome or Carthage, and I like that they play quite differently. And they don't just feel like different colors of the same shit, which is kind of how it feels like in Rome 2 base game to some degree. And I guess I'm a little bit biased with this one because the Second Punic War is probably the war in history that I'm most interested in. And so being able to play that out here, I'm probably going to be a bit biased with it. And I think they did a pretty damn good job considering it's still just Rome 2. So I'm actually going to put this one here at A tier. I just don't think it quite made it to S tier just because of the inherent problems with Rome 2's campaign. So things like the bare bones settlement management and the politics system being absolute dog shit, still present in Hannibal at the Gates, but smaller timescale means that you will not see so many of your characters die of old age. They'll die because they die in combat, sort of thing. And that's more enjoyable to experience, I think. I don't have any problem with them dying of old age, but if you've only had them for a few turns, it doesn't feel very good. You don't get attached to them, basically. You want to have a full war with them before that ends up happening. And that, I don't know, with Rome 2, just... with the base game that is, they just don't last long enough to draw an attachment to them. But yeah, with this one, you can have a general for the entire campaign and get a bit more attached to them. So really, really enjoyed the Hannibal at the Gates campaign, despite my issues with Rome 2. Okay, then let's talk about Caesar and Gaul. This one, I think, is one of the best campaigns in Rome 2. This one actually does make the cut, in my opinion, to S tier, because this one offers a improved experience over the base game, because there's an actual end game crisis that kind of makes sense. If you're playing as Rome, the Gallic forces will rise up against you at some point, and while it is just a lot of grindy armies to deal with, you do get that feeling of impending doom if you didn't prepare well enough. The politics system in Caesar and Gaul is actually not so bad. So they actually did a pretty good job of that. The tech tree is also quite good. I enjoyed that more than in the base game. And it just feels really good to have Caesar's legions to invade Gaul, if that is what you want to do, or repel them if you want to play as the Gallic tribes. So I think that the Caesar and Gaul campaign is the best of the Rome 2 ones. So that's why I'm putting it at S tier, which, you probably wouldn't have expected me to do that for any of the Rome 2 campaigns. But that's the mini campaign I probably played almost the most, if I didn't have a bias towards this one here. I'm trying not to rank it too much on bias. But yeah, just because I personally really like the Second Punic War. Okay, then there's Empire Divided. I didn't mind Empire Divided. I think it's pretty good. Basically the crisis of the third century, a very similar sort of campaign to the Imperator Augustus campaign, because you've got a fragmented Roman Empire, a little bit more cultural difference between the different Roman states. So a bit more, slightly more interesting to pick as the various Roman factions in Empire Divided. But not a huge amount of gameplay difference, I think, between that and the Imperator Augustus campaign. Again, not 1 turn per year scale, which is always great. In fact, the base game's the only one that got that, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I did enjoy this one for sure. I don't think it's worthy of S tier, so I'm going to put that at A tier because I do think it's better than the base game, the base game campaign. Then we've got Rise of the Republic was the last DLC to come out. I'll come back to that later. Then we've got actually, I'm not sure if I'm doing this in chronological order. No, I'm pretty sure I'm not, because I think Wrath of Sparta came out before Empire Divided. But anyway, Wrath of Sparta is shit. This goes straight into. I think it goes into D tier, to be honest. This is not a great campaign. For one thing, it's called Rome 2, and it doesn't include Rome. So it's the only one of these campaigns that doesn't include Romans whatsoever. But that being said, Rome Total War Alexander didn't include Rome either. But it's also in D tier. Maybe that says something. I don't know. But yeah, my problem with this isn't that Rome doesn't exist in it. That was just being silly. It's more a case of this is just a really poorly designed campaign. Like, it just feels flat, and you really don't get that feeling of we're going to invade Athens and that's our main war, or there's the Persians as well. It just feels like Rome 2 earlier with just the Greek and sort of Eastern factions, and then it's just like a mosh pit of bullshit that happens. It's just a really unrefined campaign. The politics suck as per usual. I only ever played this campaign once and then I never touched it again. I just thought this campaign fucking sucked. I really can't talk about campaigns in a lot of detail if I only ever played them once. Because yeah, I just didn't find it very interesting. Then we've got Rise of the Republic. So this one here could have had the potential, I think, to be good, but I also thought this one here was shit, so it's going into D tier as well. So here's my problems with Rise of the Republic. I think I played this one twice, so maybe I should give it C tier. Maybe only barely. I did not like this campaign. This is the last campaign DLC for Rome 2, and my problems with it were the bullshit that would happen during the campaign. Basically, armies that would just spawn out of nowhere. And I can understand the idea of like emergent sort of factions or like tribal factions, but the fact that they would just spawn, you destroy them, and then just spawn again, fucking pissed me off so much, because you just never get rid of it. You just had to have a constant legion sitting there ready to deal with it. And basically what happened was, it's really all about I think it was the chameleon reforms. Once you go through the chameleon reforms, it's just fucking ridiculous how strong your forces get. So you go from really struggling to just, well, this game is over basically, because even the basic chameleon units are just ridiculously strong. So I just think the balancing of the Rise of the Republic was just really, really poor. It has a politics system that just fucking sucks. I really didn't enjoy Rise of the Republic at all. I feel like this was designed to be a lot more painful, I suppose, than the other campaigns. I don't have a problem with something being challenging, but I don't like it when it's painful. It tries to be challenging by throwing bullshit at you, as opposed to factions naturally building up and then presenting themselves to be a real threat. You know, having your armies be elsewhere, and then all of a sudden a bullshit army shows up and it's a full stack. You didn't have a revolt or anything. It just shows up in the middle of your territory and captures your settlement and razes it or sacks it or whatever. That's super fucking annoying. And that kind of shit happens all the time in Rise of the Republic. And I just don't like that kind of stuff. So that's why I just don't like it very much at all. So that's my ratings for Rome 2. Look at this. Rome 2 actually got a place in every single category there, in every single ranking. How about that? Okay, so then we move on to Total War Attila. So Total War Attila also has a prologue campaign where I think you play as the Visigoths, I think, as you're being sort of driven out of the steppes by the Huns. I thought it was all right. I don't think I finished the prologue campaign, but I thought it was pretty good. But yeah, Total War Attila's grand campaign. I have mixed thoughts about Total War Attila, but basically it's kind of like the opposite of what I feel about Shogun 2, right? Where I say that with Shogun 2, the campaign side of thing was kind of boring, and the battles are really what makes Shogun 2 really good. Actually, no, it's the exact same thing, isn't it? The battles are really good in Total War Attila, but we're not rating it based on that. The grand campaign for Total War Attila, in my opinion, is one of the worst designed campaigns of all time for any Total War game. It is fucking awful. I have so many problems with the campaign design. It would just come across as a rant if I go through all of them, but I'm going to go through some of them because I hate it so much. So, again, I like aspects of Total War Attila. The battles run really well, but again, we've already rated the battles in a different tier list. The campaigns are, if you were just forced to auto-resolve every single battle in Total War Attila, for one thing, you could do it because the auto-resolve heavily favors whoever's got the biggest numbers. So you could just spam friggin' basic spear units and just dominate if you really wanted to. But the core structure of Total War Attila is designed around survival, and it fucking fails at doing that because of the core design issues. The way that the game pushes you to go, it is filled with player traps more in Total War Attila than in any other Total War game. Basically, whatever the game says you should do this, just don't do it because it's almost always wrong. Things like holding on to the entire Western Roman Empire. Why? Because it causes shitloads of corruption. You're just so much better off actually abandoning half of your worthless territory at the very start of the campaign, which you can't defend properly anyway. I mean, unless you're really bloody good at it. You just have a way easier time as a smaller empire. And for one thing, they don't declare war on you quite as often. The AI is belligerent to the extreme. Having alliances is basically worthless in Total War Attila because all they do is drag you into wars and then betray you at the very earliest opportunity. So for example, if you're playing as the Huns, getting any vassals is fucking pointless because the moment you declare war on someone, they will immediately go, nah, I'm not your vassal anymore. And then you've got to go and reconquer them again. Or better still, just burn them to the ground to begin with. So the diplomacy in Total War Attila is fucking awful. The settlement design is also fucking awful because the way that you can upgrade your buildings can end up costing you more money than they provide. So for example, gold as a resource. In every single other Total War game, generating gold from a gold building makes you more money. Not in Total War Attila, because it causes all these fucking problems, right? Because gold is affected by corruption. And so if you've got like 50% corruption, you're not going to make that much money. But the gold building, as you build it up, will provide increasingly amounts of like public order penalties and squalor penalties, requiring multiple buildings to compensate it. Now, the thing is, if you just don't build the gold building and instead build a structure that doesn't cost loads of public order or squalor issues and maybe only makes a little bit amount of money, you're actually way better off in those situations. So the actual balancing in Total War Attila is way fucking off. It's so friggin' bad. Just absolutely friggin' stupid in so many different ways. And same thing with like the tech tree, actually removing certain buildings. Obviously this is mainly for the Romans. But yeah, there's so much stupid bullshit in Total War Attila. The thing is, the game is actually pretty fucking easy. As long as you just don't do what it wants you to do. Don't expand early on and just stay small, and the game is super bloody easy. Just avoid the Huns, and with Attila as well, when the in-game crisis happens, just don't attack any army, don't wipe out any army apart from Attila's army. Like I said, I've gone on over so many times about Total War Attila's just critical, massive campaign issues that just, look, some people like this kind of stuff, but I find it as lazy and stupid design, and that's why it's getting the D tier, which I don't like that I have to give it a D tier, because I think that fundamentally Attila is a good game, but that campaign fucking sucks. Anyway, then we move on to the last Roman campaign. So any of the issues that I had with the Grand campaign don't present themselves in the DLC campaigns quite as much. Also, it's got a politics system, but it's a pretty light touch, unlike with Rome 2. So I don't have any serious issues with that one. So this one here, I think that the vast majority of the factions that you play with this is boring. The only one that's interesting to play as is Belisarius. I don't have a problem with that, but yeah, the other ones just play out sort of as normal campaigns. But yeah, the Belisarius campaign, that's really interesting because you can either continue to play as a horde, as you start off as, and gift the settlements over to the Eastern Roman Empire as per Justinian's conquest of that time. Or you can betray Justinian and set up your own sort of Roman kingdom and basically, play as a settled faction. So really interesting campaign. You've got loads of different mechanics working for you, loads of rewards one way or another, which way you want to play, and just encourages you properly to actually play the game as it's intended. Unlike with the base game, which punishes you for playing the game as intended. You shouldn't do that. You should reward the player for playing it as intended. Because the thing is, if you punish the player for playing it as it's intended, they won't play the game as it's intended, unless they're freaking stupid. Or they just want to do that. I don't know. Anyway, so with the last Roman campaign, I'm going to put this one at A tier. I think it's a good campaign. Okay, then we move on to Age of Charlemagne. So, this costs a whole Jabberslith to make. Can you believe it? So, the Age of Charlemagne campaign was really where they took all the issues from Total War Attila base game and sort of sorted them out. The core issues with certain buildings, with corruption, being able to basically provide adjacency bonuses, it allowed you to more thoughtfully build your provinces without fucking you up just because you upgraded up to tier 4 sort of thing. So building it so that you had enough adjacency with like corruption and public order and religious conversion, you thought it was just a lot more thoughtful in terms of how that played out. There's also like missions in terms of what you can be doing, especially with Charlemagne. And it's not the only campaign that's interesting. And also, as you progress through the campaign, your faction name changes. It's only a small thing, but these are things that I think make campaigns interesting as they start off as being like just a small kingdom and then eventually becomes the Holy Roman Empire as the faction changes. But overall, if they had implemented the campaign side of things from Age of Charlemagne back into Total War Attila, I really wouldn't have anywhere near as much problem as what I do with it. So with Age of Charlemagne, it's a campaign that I really enjoyed, but I don't think it's worthy of S tier. I think it's still an A tier campaign. Maybe just slightly better than the last Roman campaign. But overall, I think it's a really good campaign side of things. Okay, so now we move on to Total War Warhammer. Now, Total War... Oh, hang on. That should not be there. And that one shouldn't be there. Okay, there we go. So with Total War Warhammer, this is Total War Warhammer 1. If you're playing it as of 2025, it's not just the DLC for Warhammer 3. In terms of what we're rating here, it's the grand campaign, but it's not Mortal Empires because you can't just. This is before Warhammer 2 came out, right? This campaign was pretty bare bones. It doesn't really function that well, especially considering the games that came after it. It's not very well balanced, and yeah, it's just kind of boring, especially when compared to the campaign mechanics that came later. Total War Warhammer, on the campaign side of things, there isn't much going on. This is before any of these faction reworks. Like the Empire has like Imperial officers that are just super friggin' boring. Bretonia is basically the same, more or less. The Dwarfs, they've got their very first grudge system, which was boring. Trying to remember what it was even like. The vampire counts, they don't have their blood kiss. Obviously, the vampire counts, they are neglected. But, man, Total War Warhammer 1, if you go back and play it to this day, it's so bare bones. So I'm going to put Warhammer 1, this campaign, it just goes straight in the trash. There's just no reason to play it because you've got 2 more iterations of that landmass with massive improvements still to come and that are available now. It was okay to play it when the others weren't available. This kind of felt like the early access. I mean, in many ways, you could still argue that with Warhammer 2 and 3. But yeah, it just I got these around the wrong way over here. But yeah, the campaign for Warhammer 1, there's not much to say about it. I played it many, many times. I just think, looking back at it now, there's no reason to go back and play it because it's so badly outdated. It's missing all of the reworks, and all the factions are just boring on the campaign map side of things. The auto resolve is also completely broken in that it heavily favors numbers of your units rather than quality of units, and so the optimal way to auto resolve stuff is just spam tier 1 units and just have more units than the enemy. So it's just kind of boring. There's not much to the settlement management. It doesn't have many landmarks or anything like that. There's just not much going on. Also, it has a settlement system where, like the Empire, they can only occupy sort of non-mountainous regions, and Dwarves and Greenskins can only occupy the mountainous regions. And one of the most popular mods for this game was one that just got rid of that system entirely. And then in Warhammer 2, of course, they implemented the climate system, which was made way better. But anyway, Warhammer 1, just forget about it. Like, not saying it's a bad DLC for Warhammer 3, but don't go back and play Warhammer 1's campaign. It's not good. Anyway, there are some mini campaigns in Warhammer 1. So we've got the Beastmen one. This one, like, having the mini campaigns, I don't have a problem with it, but this one, I just didn't think it was very good, especially considering, the Beastmen rework has happened now in Warhammer 2, which is really friggin' good, and it doesn't retroactively apply in Warhammer 1. So I'm going to put this one as D tier because the Beastmen in Warhammer 1 play like fucking dog shit, and it's just reflected there as well. I just do not like that campaign at all. For 2025, just you're so much better off playing Beastmen in either Warhammer 2 or Warhammer 3 in the grand campaigns than going and playing this mini campaign. That being said, some people will enjoy it. I personally don't. And it's much the same way with the Wood Elves. I don't think the Wood Elf one is quite as bad as the Beastman one, so I'm going to put this one at C tier. But I do think this is a pretty bad campaign, just because the Wood Elves have had a rework that makes them better to play, especially in Warhammer 3, and I would just prefer to play them there, especially considering they've got more Legendary Lords available in Warhammer 2 and Warhammer 3 compared to Warhammer 1, where they've just got the 2. But it was all right. It's just not a very interesting campaign, in my opinion. The Beastmen are basically invading, and you just expand out and conquer. It's a small, stale campaign, in my opinion, but whatever. Some people love those mini campaigns. Me personally, nah, they're very forgettable. Okay, now we move on to Warhammer 2. Now, here's the big thing. You guys know I loved Warhammer 2, right? But there's the Vortex campaign and there's Mortal Empires. It's important to make that distinction here. Vortex campaign, it's going to vary depending on which faction you play as. But what I'm going to do here is rate it based on the actual Vortex campaign. So all of the characters that were introduced later that don't play the Vortex missions can also be played in Mortal Empires. And the ones that play in this one here that are included, that don't go after the Vortex, those ones play just fine. But the actual Vortex campaign itself, I always thought was shit. And so I'm actually going to put the Vortex campaign for Warhammer 2 at C tier, because I don't think it was very popular. This is why when Warhammer 2 first came out, that wasn't its peak. Its peak came way later at like Grom the Paunch. That was where its peak player count came in, because that was where Immortal Empires was really getting going. It was also during COVID when people were stuck at home, so that may have had something to do with it. But yeah, the Vortex campaign, I feel like it's not the worst thing ever, but it was also, considering you had access to Mortal Empires if you also owned Warhammer 1, I just had no reason to go back and play any of those factions in the Vortex campaign. Once you play the Vortex campaign once, there's no reason to play it again. The story is okay, just I didn't like the way that the Vortex missions played out. I don't really want to go into it too much, but basically, you're sort of encouraged to... It's the same sort of problem that you have with Total War Attila. The game leads you to do stuff that's actually a trap, where you certainly can do it, but you're better off just waiting until you've actually secured heaps of resource before you actually do any of the Vortex missions, because you've still got to be like conquering the other factions while you don't have to, I guess, but you should be while you're doing it. I mean, that's a Total War experience. And so you press down the Vortex button so that you can start the Vortex ritual, and then these fucking random armies show up, and you've got to immediately go and deal with it. And I just don't like the idea of armies to just spawn in your own territory that just come out of nowhere based on like a timer or anything like that, which was the same problem I had with the Rise of the Republic stuff. So yeah, that was the problem with the Vortex stuff. But any faction that didn't play the Vortex missions, it was fine. I had no problem with that. As for Mortal Empires, though, since you don't have to actually deal with the Vortex stuff, Warhammer 2 Mortal Empires, S tier. Fantastic. That was the way to play Warhammer 2. And that's where 90% of my playtime on Warhammer 2 was on, maybe even 95, who cares, on Warhammer 2 was spent on Mortal Empires. Fantastic experience, really challenging campaign on Legendary difficulty. The AI naturally built up into massive forces, into big alliance blocks, and presented late-game challenges without, being an end-game crisis. In fact, the end-game crisis was kind of stupid with the Warriors of Chaos, because just spam armies, for one thing. But another thing is that if you knocked out Archaon, Sigvald, and Kolak simultaneously, as in they're both wounded at the same time, then it would just end the Chaos Invasion. And I think that that's good that you could just end it like that, because it was kind of a stupid mechanic in the first place. And they still haven't really managed to figure out how to make Endgame Crisis interesting without it just being like, oh look, here's 20 armies of the same thing with lots of cheats. It's just boring. So the Endgame Crisis, I mean, you could always just turn it off as well. But yeah, overall, the campaign experience for Warhammer 2 is just fantastic, in my opinion. Okay, now we're moving on to Warhammer 3. Now, we need to make distinctions with Warhammer 3. I actually forgot about this game here. Actually, we'll do this one next, because this came out after Warhammer 2. So this is 2018, whereas Warhammer 2 is 2017. In fact, this one should go over here as well. And this one. And yep. Yep. Okay. I just ordered this wrong. Okay. So we'll get to Warhammer 3 last then. So, Total War Saga, Thrones of Britannia. I've always obviously said I've been very critical of this game. I think the battles on it are pretty good, but the campaign side of things, basically like Total War Tiller, is shit. It's bare bones, just boring, filled with dilemmas. I don't really like the campaign for Thrones of Britannia, so it is going straight into the D tier. It basically inherited all of the same problems, well, a lot of the same. Actually, you know what? Maybe it belongs in C tier. It's not that bad. It's just, I think it's bare bones. That's my biggest problem with it. It's just like a smaller version of Total War Attila. Less unit variety, which again, that's more of a battle side of things. But on the campaign side of things, it introduces a food mechanic that I just think is just really boring. It's got minor settlements that don't have any garrisons. Again, it's kind of boring because these regions just get to swap constantly, and it's just a bit boring. The diplomacy is boring, in my opinion. There are, like some of the dilemmas are all right. There's like an estate mechanic where you can give your lords or your generals estates. I just don't think it's very well fleshed out. I think that Thrones of Britannia tried too hard to be Crusader Kings 2, while not trying hard enough to be Crusader Kings 2, if you know what I mean. It's like it tried to sort of implement some of that Crusader King 2 element to it, while not going anywhere near far enough, especially considering how many features were actually stripped from the campaign. So like so many of the stances are removed, like camp stance is gone, you can't use ambush stance, all these kind of things. And even though ambush stance would be important for battles, it is also very important for the campaign because you could lure your enemy forces to make a mistake basically. And because the AI can always see throughout the fog of war, they was just run away from you if you were too strong. It just, there was no way to get them apart from just chasing after them. So a lot of the stuff you did on the campaign was excruciatingly boring. Not an overly challenging Total War game, in my opinion. It had some very silly things going on with it. I don't know if they changed this later down the track, but there was something like, you know how you can reduce the taxes globally, right? I mean, it's pretty much the case ever since like Empire Total War. So if you reduce the taxes globally, they actually provide positive effects. So you would get like more public order if it was on the lowest tax bracket, right? But if you could still exempt a region from taxation, and exempting a region from taxation set it basically to the middle. So it would do this stupid thing, right, where in order, like if you have a region that had bad public order, exempting it from taxation would actually provide less public order benefit than putting it on low taxation. Just like really dumb things that the developers just didn't think of, and then just I don't know if they fixed this up. I remember playing it a few years ago. I checked it. I was like, they barely updated the game in the first place because they abandoned it straight away. But yeah, just little things like that. Just lots of little shit things that oversights that they didn't think about. The game is just filled with them. Again, a lot of the enjoyment I think people will have out of Thrones of Britannia will be on the battle side of things, not on the campaign, because the campaign's shit. It doesn't offer a very good experience at all. Like the different cultures, they don't feel distinct. Like playing as Wessex really doesn't feel fundamentally different from playing as one of the Danish factions. So I didn't play much Thrones of Britannia because it's only got the one campaign, despite having a big DLC button. There's only Blood Pack. But anyway. Moving on from that, we go on to Three Kingdoms. Now, with Three Kingdoms, this is a bit of a weird one because there are actually 5 start times. And I've sort of merged 4 of them into this one here because all of the characters, or most of the characters, are present on all 4 of them because it's within like a 12-year time space. It's just different start position, a different time start, because the Three Kingdom period, things were shifting around all over the place. One year a character is in this location, the next year is subordinate to someone else, and so starting in different time positions allowed you to play out the campaigns very differently. Three Kingdoms does a great job of the campaign experience, so I think I'm going to put this at S tier because there's just so much you can do. Like going over each individual thing, I'll be here all bloody day. Already this video's gone on longer than I would have liked. The diplomacy is fantastic. There are some things that are incredibly unbalanced though, but that's the case with every Total War game. But yeah, the first 4 start dates, they did a great job of all that stuff. And the 5th start date is the 8 Princes DLC, which I'm not going to put on this list. Do you know why? I never played it. I don't own that DLC. But I did put a visual representation of it here, just to let you guys know that I never played this DLC. I heard it was shit, so if I did play it, I was going to probably put it in D tier, but I never did play it. I mean, you guys let me know, what do you think of the 8 Princes campaign? But yeah, I was playing Warhammer 2 at the time, and so I didn't get that DLC, and I heard from everyone else that it was shit, and I just never got it. Simple as that. I haven't really ever thought about it since. So that's just... But it does exist. But yeah, like I said, I won't rate it because I haven't played it. Okay, then we move on to Total War Troy. So here's the thing. I've been very critical of Total War Troy, but it's on the battle side of things. It's the actual opposite. This is the one that I meant was like the opposite of Shogun 2 and Total War Attila, where when these two games here, the battles are the main feature. In Troy, the battles are fucking crap. Absolute awful. Probably some of the worst battles in any Total War game. Absolute fail. But the campaign side of things is fantastic. And that's what we're rating this on. And guess what? Troy's campaign, if I was able to just auto-resolve every single battle and be okay with that, which I'm not, the campaign side of things is the only thing that drew me to the actual game itself. And the only reason I played it. And guess what? The campaign mechanics are S tier. The bartering system is fantastic. Diplomacy is okay. You know, it at least draws on most of what's there at the Three Kingdoms. I bet you didn't expect me to put Troy's campaign here at S tier. Because, yeah, on the campaign side of things, it's really good. It takes a lot. I mean, it is a fork from Warhammer 2, which I don't think they should have done that. But it all just kind of works on the campaign side of things. The diplomacy is all right. It's the case with just about every Total War game. It's sort of the alliance between the Helens and the Trojans. I liked it. But yeah, I just hated the battles. I would have played more Troy if the battles weren't so fucking obnoxious and just annoying. But yeah, the character development, not quite as good as with Warhammer, but it was at least there. You know, there's access to confederations, settlement trading. You know, it's pretty good on the campaign side of things. And then it's got two other types of campaigns. There's a historical mode, which takes away the single entity bullshit so that your characters can actually be killed and, you know, they're part of a unit. It's kind of like, you know, I separated this from the main game, but also Three Kingdoms has got a records mode instead of the fantasy mode, romance mode. But I don't think anyone should even bother playing records mode. The base game as Three Kingdoms is fine, but I think with Troy, because it was there was some demand for the historical mode, I felt like I needed to separate, because I feel like the records mode with this one was just like it's Three Kingdoms but less, whereas this kind of adds a little bit more to it. This was all right. I'm gonna put it at A tier because I just think that it's not sort of like the thing that they put the most amount of effort into, but it, you know, all the campaign experience is basically identical, and so that's the thing that matters there. Then I move on to Mythos. So Mythos is a bit of a weird one because I didn't play it very long. But I didn't play it for very long because I fucking hate the battles in Troy. That's all. I didn't mind the campaign side of things. But the problem here is that I didn't play it long enough to really get into it. I didn't play it long enough even to get any of the mythical units. Like I think there's 3 mythical beasts. I only played about 20 turns before I was like, oh, fuck these battles, man. I'm going back to Warhammer. So, you know the battles are bad if you're like, fuck this, I'm going back to Warhammer. Like, when I saw the Centaur units basically just, like, clipping through units and colliding through and just not even impacting us, it's like, fuck this game. But that's the battle side of things. We're not taking that into consideration. On the campaign side of things, I had no issue with it. And the fact that you could sort of do that power fantasy of going and get those mythical units of ancient Greece, that was really good. And it was just, for me, just completely spoiled by just the worst battles I've ever fucking played in a Total War game. But I can recognize that the campaign side of things was very good. And so it does actually get the S tier. Even though I only played it for a little bit, I loved the campaign side of things of Troy. But like I said, the battles just ruined that game for me. You know, it's kind of like, imagine if you're going to the cinema and you're watching your favorite movie, and someone just fucking farts in your face the entire movie. That's what it's like playing Troy for me. Someone is fucking pissing on my seat the entire time I'm trying to enjoy something, and there's just no way to not experience that, unfortunately. And so, yeah. And again, it's the sort of thing with like Rome 2 with the politics system. I'd enjoy it so much more if it would stop farting in my face, you know? And Total War games sometimes have that obnoxious feature. For Troy, it's the battles, in my opinion. And you will get some people say, oh, but the battles, they improved it. No, they didn't. It's fucking awful. But anyway, that's, my opinion, and you can take it with a grain of salt. It doesn't matter. It's all just for a bit of fun. But yeah, I do think that the campaign side of things of Troy is very good. Okay, then moving on to Total War Warhammer 3. So, starting with the Vortex campaign. D tier. Fucking awful. So they basically took the Vortex campaign. The Realms of Chaos campaign. The Vortex campaign 2.0. They basically took the Vortex campaign and went, okay, what do people hate about this campaign? Let's dial that up to 11. The most obnoxious campaign in the history of Total War. Even more obnoxious than Total War Attila. And that is super obnoxious. They should have just had that map implemented and just scrapped the story mode of it. And instead what they've done now is kind of just scrap the entire campaign. No new factions will be added for the Realms of Chaos campaign because it is objectively one of the biggest failures in a Total War game. Like imagine it's still fairly fresh for me. Imagine having such a huge success with Mortal Empires, with Warhammer 2, knowing people saying exactly what they like about the game, and then going, let's ignore what everyone says, and let's make the main game mode the thing that hardly anyone plays, and let's make it even more obnoxious, and also make even more problems with it than what was in the Vortex campaign. You are incentivized, if you want to play optimally, not to participate in the Realms of Chaos campaign, because you know what the thing is? The reward is bullshit. It's just not even very good. In fact, it's so bullshit that they added in an additional reward, which was copy-pasted exactly from the Vortex campaign. That's how fucking lazy this Realms of Chaos campaign is. It is absolute A-grade dog shit. And the only way that I was ever able to enjoy this campaign was to ignore it entirely. I just focused on domination and ignored the Realms of Chaos side of things. Absolute fucking trash. So one of the biggest failures of Creative Assembly was the Realms of Chaos campaign for Warhammer 3. Absolute dog shit. Anyway, moving on to Immortal Empires, however, it's the complete opposite. It's S tier. It's fantastic. I mean, it just keeps getting better as well, apart from the engine basically unraveling before our eyes. It's filled with content. It doesn't have the obnoxious piece of shit narrative campaign that, I mean, obviously, like the Chaos Dwarves don't have to play that. And their campaign on the Realms of Chaos is fine. So I do want to point that out. And same thing with like Tamarkan's campaign. And, anyone that doesn't participate in the actual Realms of Chaos, like the Champions of Chaos stuff, their campaigns are fine. But rating it off its core feature, the actual Realms of Chaos, dog shit. Absolute horse shit. Fucking terrible. There's absolutely no excuse for, even now, for the game to be in the state. Like, they tried to fix it a little bit, but it was such a lackluster effort. It was just like a couple of band-aid solutions and then abandoned. Basically getting the Thrones of Britannia treatment. Oh, you guys didn't like it? Okay, we won't fix it then. Basically that. Rather than, basically cutting your hand off rather than washing it sort of thing. It's like, oh, a dirty hand, I might as well cut it off. That's basically what they've done with these two games here. And I'm not going to rate them highly on that kind of stuff. But anyway, with Immortal Empires, while it didn't come out to be initially fantastic right from the get-go, had a lot of issues, still has a lot of issues, especially with like weird AI decisions. Overall, Immortal Empires is fantastic. It's just a matter of playing the factions that you personally enjoy and try not to play the factions that you're just not going to enjoy, because everyone's going to want to enjoy something different. Some of you guys, you're not going to want to play the greenskin stuff. The greenskin stuff, shit for some people. That's fine. Don't play the greenskins. But that's the great thing about Immortal Empires. It has such a wide variety of different play styles that are catered for. Just focus on the ones that you enjoy. And if you do that, you'll find something very enjoyable, because it's a huge world map that gives you a lot of options for traversing it, including like the sea lanes, which you can turn on and off and on, at the start of the campaign. So you have to decide if you even want to use them. There's sometimes teleport mechanics. It's got some endgame crisis stuff, but they're implementing more and more campaign customization to really give you guys the experience that you want out of Warhammer 3. Of course, if you're not interested in Warhammer, then obviously you're going to say, Warhammer is shit, Total War is historical only. That's fine. You know, then do your own tier list. You know, fine. I don't have a problem with people saying that. It's just weird. Anyway, but overall, I think that Immortal Empires is a fantastic campaign for Warhammer 3. It's, you know, progress happens. It's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But at least there's a lot of reworks happening with all of these factions, and they're getting there. And then, of course, there is something that I probably should have at least put the icons in here, but I couldn't even be bothered with it, because I didn't be bothered to play the game, and that's Total War Pharaoh. I didn't play the original Pharaoh or the Dynasties. I haven't played either of them. I don't own them, but I will acknowledge that they exist, and that I think from the campaign side of things, there's nothing wrong with them, because they are basically pretty identical to Troy, if anything, like an enhancement of it. But yeah, I wanted to put the image for 8 princes in here, because I actually own 3 kingdoms, and I've played those campaigns. I just haven't played this one, whereas I don't own Pharaoh, and I haven't played either one of those campaigns. So I didn't put them in there. But like I said, I'll acknowledge it. And if I was to play the campaign of Pharaoh, I don't think the campaign is where I have the problem. It's with the battles and the fact that they bloody reuse the Troy engine again. And I know that they have improved it ever so slightly with the battles, but it just, with the existence of Warhammer 3, I'm just not interested in giving that a shot, especially considering you get so much better battles in other Total War games, from what I've seen anyway. But yeah, from a campaign perspective, with Pharaoh, I probably would have rated it somewhere along the lines of maybe A or B, because it did look pretty good. They put a lot of effort, and it seemed to work pretty damn well. But unfortunately, after having the experience of Troy, I am not interested in watching my favorite movie while being farted on in my face. I'm just not interested in doing that anymore. You know, when I play the battles in Total War Warhammer 3, I do at least enjoy them. You know, same thing with all of these other ones in here. Now, again, we're not rating them based on the battles, but I think it's important to understand the context of it as well. Why I haven't played Pharaoh. But anyway, that's my rating of the campaigns for Total War in general. I think I covered all of them. I don't think there was any that I missed, except for maybe prologue campaigns, but I mentioned at least all the ones that I have played. I'm sure that there's some that have prologue campaigns that maybe I never played. I'm just not sure. But yeah, that's I think covered every single campaign. Let me know in the comments below if there was a campaign that I missed. Just let me know. Obviously, I get a bit heated when I talk about some of these campaigns, especially like Total War Attila and Warhammer 3 Realms of Chaos. And that's largely because of how disappointing they are, because of such a missed opportunity. Because I really want to like Total War Attila, but fuck, the campaign sucks. And it's the same sort of thing with the Realms of Chaos thing. But anyway, at least we got Immortal Empires for that. And we do have the DLC campaigns for Total War Attila. You know, some people like to go rambling on around in circles. But anyway, that's the end of this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Don't forget, this is a subjective tier list. There is no objective truth to any of this. It's just my opinion. And if you disagree with it, you know, we can still be friends. Let me know what you think about some of these campaigns. Some of the ones that I love, maybe you hate them. Maybe some of the ones that I hate, maybe you like them. Let me know. Anyway, don't forget to check out Manscaped, link in the description. Big thanks to them once again for sponsoring this video. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time. Later, guys.